The scriptures for today, there's just little snippets of a few scriptures here. From Galatians 3, verse 28, there is no longer Jew or Greek, there is no longer slave or free, there is no longer male or female, but all of you are one in Jesus Christ. And then from Matthew, the Gospel, chapter 16. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others say Elijah, and still others, Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered the hymn, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." And finally, the lovely words, just a sentence from Micah chapter 6, verse 8. "He has told you, O mortal, what is good and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God." So now we're going to listen to Reverend Steve Gordon, and I realized I should have brought a little bit more information on Steve. He's been with us a while. We introduced you the first time.
Right.
But I know you're going to include some things about your own life as you talk.
A little bit.
So welcome.
Thank you, Karin. Thank you, Mark. So if I ask questions now, it's okay for you to answer. So as you know, there are many celebrities who change their names. They take a stage name. So does anybody know who Maurice Micklewhite is? Michael Caine. And then this one you probably get, Jennifer Anastaskis. Right, very good. And how about Robert Zimmerman? Bob Dylan. This is a tough one. Krishna Pandit Banji. It was Ben Kingsley. Or it is. Karen Johnson. Whoopi Goldberg. Okay, I know you'll get this one. Reginald Dwight. Elton John, right. So how about this one? Stefani Joanne Angelina Geramati. Who said that? Who said that? Did you say Lady Gaga? You got it. How about Tom Hanks? You know what his name was? It was Tom Hanks. His middle name was Jeffrey. So Thomas Jeffrey Hanks. And I think that we're given our middle name solely for the purpose of when we get in trouble with our mom. Yeah. Stephen Paul Gordon, you get in this house instantly. Guys, I gotta go. My mother used my middle name. So almost every religious culture has naming rituals. In Hinduism, it's quite an elaborate ceremony. It includes wetting the head of the child, and then an aunt or grandmother, sometimes the father, whispers the child's name in her or his ear while holding a betel leaf on the other ear and then repeating the process on the opposite ear. Anybody know what a betel leaf is, by the way? It's really cool. When I was in India, I remember seeing these big leaves, and they would sometimes dry them out and paint on them. And so I have some Christmas ornaments that are painted on betel leaf. So it's really neat. So the baby then receives a blessing from the priest, and all the guests have a big feast. In the Bible, we have many name changes. Either God or Jesus is giving a new name. The new name often had to do with the mission that a person would be involved in. God changed Abram to Abraham. Father of a multitude. And his wife's name was Sarai, Sarai, my princess. And then God said to call her Sarah, Sarah, which also means princess, but then said that she would be the mother of nations. When he was born, Jacob was given the name Jacob, which means trickster or supplanter or grabber. He would grab the birthright from Esau. And then, after Jacob wrestled with the angel at the river Jabbok, his name became Israel, meaning strives with God and prevails. Jesus changed Simon's name to Peter the Rock, as Pastor Karin shared with us in the scripture, because Peter saw through the eyes of faith. Jesus says, "You are the rock that I will build my church upon," the rock of faith. The church is built on the foundation of faith. Jesus' words in the new name, Peter, was a way to let the disciples know some of the divine plan that they would be involved in, that they would help God with. Yes, today is Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and I want to speak about dreaming and hoping. When I was in Billings, I was on an amazing nonprofit called Not in Our Town. Has anybody ever heard of Not in Our Town? Not in Our Town began about 28 years ago, and what happened was hate groups, white supremacists, skinheads came into Billings. They were harassing the Afro-American churches and the synagogue. One night, they threw a brick through the window of a child who had his menorah in the window for Hanukkah. The brick smashed the window and just missed the child who was lying in his bed. And so the community decided to rally around in solidarity with the synagogue, the churches, and this child. And so they decided they would all put menorahs in their windows. So many people began, and this, I have to say, was encouraged by the UCC churches in Billings, as well as the police department and Mayor Tooley at that time and other leaders. So they needed more menorahs. So the Billings Gazette printed off a whole page-sized menorah so that people could all put those in their windows. And people stood up against the hate, and they pushed these white supremacists out of the community. So when I was a child, my father was Jewish and my mother was Christian. And because of my Jewish background, I received a lot of Jewish animosity. I was called a dirty Jew. I was called a kike. I was not allowed in some people's homes. I had a man shake a stick at me to get out of his yard when other children were playing. It was a difficult time. But to then, all these years later, become part of the board of Not in Our Town just made so much sense to me. It was so healing. And so every year on Martin Luther King weekend, and I have to tell you that Not in Our Town always continues to stand up whenever there's a hate group or some kind of hate crime that happens. We worked on a non-discrimination ordinance, which lost by 1 vote, but it's always there to do this. And every year on Martin Luther King weekend, there would be programs that would be hosted by Not in Our Town, and there was always a theme. And one year, the theme was to dream forward. And the idea of choosing this was to carry Dr. King's message and the work of equality and justice into the future. Maybe in some ways, naming the future. Dr. King through his life and his actions, preaching, through his expression of his dream, gave hope to people of color in a nation that it would overcome and heal itself of its division and its destructive hatred and injustice. The world is a complex place, and we can never minimize the problems that are faced by the world in terms of economy and war and terrorism and lingering racism and anti-Semitism and broken immigration system and so many groups targeted by hatred simply for who they are. And in the midst of all of this, no matter how severe things seem to be, we can't give up dreaming and hoping. Hope is what keeps us going, keeps us dreaming. Hope was also my star word last week. Martin Luther King tapped into the universal hope that all men and women needed to be treated equally, fairly, with dignity, with respect. Martin Luther King had a dream that sadly many people despised in his time. He dreamed of America that would actually treat everyone equally, and that it would put the Constitution and its creeds into practice, and it would practice what it preached. Dr. King offered his dream. He fought for his dream in the midst of despair. It was a dream, a hope in the midst of a nightmare. Through the great unifying song of the civil rights movement, we can hold our hands together and we can sing, "We shall overcome." We can name the future. We shall overcome hate and injustice. We all have our challenges and our difficulties, and we must hold on to the hope that faith brings. 1 Corinthians 13 says, "Love bears all things, believes all things, and hopes all things." I think that these words from the Apostle Paul capture the heart of the gospel and the love of the one described in Jesus. It was truly an age of despair and darkness in Jesus' time when he entered the world. Strangely, unexpectedly, God breathed the hopefulness of Jesus the Christ into the world. He spoke and generated his love and his hopeless and desperate hearts, from fishermen to a woman at a well feeling spiritually lost in rejection of bigotry and prejudice. He gave love and hopefulness to so many men and women searching for healing and wholeness. His hopeful spirit still will come to us in the dreams of our heart through the people sharing and acting on their dreams. The great thing about dreaming is that when a dream begins to be achieved, we can hope for more. Martin, in his dream, offered new names for the future. As I said, as we dream forward, we can offer new names for the future, like equality and justice. We can help people, everybody, rename themselves. Reverend Tony Robinson, a UCC minister, writes, "Sometimes a name change is a literal one. Other times the name change aren't literal, but they're every bit as powerful. As when Jesus encounters a woman with a long-lasting hemorrhage condition, which has effectively named her unclean, out and an outcast. Jesus heals her and renames her daughter and says she is a child of Abraham, which meant she belonged. Many of us bear names that diminish us, distort, or disfigure us. These names may be secret ones, known only to us because of experiences of abuse or neglect. It may have happened long ago. We may have come to believe that our real name is unlovable, or shameful, or worthless. God has a new name for us. It's beloved. It's precious. It's wonderful. Our God is in the business of name changes, performing spiritual heart surgery, healing our deepest wounds. There's a song entitled, "I Will Change Your Name," by D.J. Butler, and you can go online, you can go and find incredible YouTube videos that go with this. But the words are, "I shall change your name. You will no longer be called wounded, outcast, lonely, or afraid. I will change your name. Your name shall be confidence, joyfulness, overcoming one, faithfulness, friend of God, one who seeks my face. I'll change your name." So finally, I want to end, and I would just ask you please to close your eyes for just a moment and take in these words, and maybe they'll become a mantra for our lives. I am good. I am love. I am of God. I am good. I am love. I am of God. Amen.